Hey, so today I'm excited to bring you a special episode where you're going to get to hear from one of my amazing Stressless Eating clients. Now, I've told you before that I am not here to persuade you or convince you or try to sell you on the fact that the diet mentality is the real problem here, and that the journey that I believe all women need to go on to create their freedom only comes when you take the time to heal your relationship with food and your body and yourself. So instead, I'm just going to let you hear it from women who have been where you are and have been locked inside their own food and body and shame prisons, and they've come out on the other side victorious. I'll let you hear it from them and see it through their eyes. And remember, this is a pretty big deal for these gals to share their journey because remember, this topic tends to carry around a lot of weight and a lot of shame. And in these case study interviews, they do not hold back. Like they share the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. I'm talking their fears, their struggles, their skepticism, all of it. So without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. We're recording. We are live. So hello, ladies. I am here with the most amazing Jessica, and she has just graciously and bravely agreed to share her story, share her truths. So first of all, hello. Thanks for being here. You're outside in the beautiful wilderness. Well, yeah, we're grateful that you're here. And, there's a lot of women that are sitting in the shoes that you were in just, a few months ago, just really lost, confused, feeling like, this food prison, not knowing where to turn, like not knowing how to feel, like really taking ownership of your relationship with food and your body. But it was so much more than that. It's the emotional self. It's who we're being every single moment of every single day. And I just, first of all, want to thank you in advance for sharing your story with everyone that's here, because you have had a lot, you have a lot of wisdom. You experienced a lot of life before we met. And then unbeknownst to you, life hit you when we were in the middle of doing our work together. And I know you're going to share a little bit about that. So first of all, hello, welcome. And I'd love for you to just kind of share a little bit about, where were you before we met? Like, what was your life like? What was your relationship with food like? What was your relationship with your body like? What was your relationship with yourself like? Just kind of fill us in a little bit.
Bad, and bad.
That's all I needed to say. No.
I would say my life was kind of in shambles. I was married, but was very lonely. I had lost kind of myself. I hated my body. I hated the way that I felt. I had tried to use food to comfort myself, to punish myself. I thought about food all the time. I numbed myself all the time with all kinds of things and was just really miserable and had lost kind of faith in myself and decision making. And I knew something, the food issue was kind of taking over my life, but I knew that there was something deeper to it, but I just could not figure out how to fix it. And I don't even know how I stumbled upon you. I think I just stumbled upon a video scrolling Facebook. And it wasn't even a video. It was an audio recording, I think. And your words just hit me. And I was at such a low point. I was willing to give anything that sounded different a try. And that's how it started. But I was really not in a good place.
Yeah. And you said that you had lost trust in yourself and kind of lost faith that anything would ever work for you. Like, what had you tried up until that point? Like, what are the different things that you had attempted to really heal this?
I had been in therapy. I had tried every diet to try to fix my emotional problems. I had tried therapy. I had tried dieting. I had tried spiritual stuff. And I had tried, I feel like, everything. That's how I felt, that I had tried everything and I just wasn't feeling any better no matter what I did.
Yeah. Yeah. And what do you think it was about those things? Because I think everybody that's watching right now can experience that. Like they've done every diet under the sun. Like it's the same thing, but it's still a diet. You know, a lot of women I work with, they've gone to therapy, years of therapy, you know, and it tends to regress them. You know, the spiritual side of things, like surrendering fully and letting God take over, and that they all have their place, you know. But why do you think those things didn't work for you? What do you think missed the mark about therapy and all those different modalities?
I think that who I was kind of getting in the way of those things working, but also I just kept coming back to the same voice in my head that, you know, I'm praying and nothing, you know, I'm not good enough. And I think I really just think that I had any worth to bring. And so all these things weren't working for me. I even remember in like my last Weight Watchers meeting, sitting there and hearing different people talk, you know, because it's a group, and thinking, these are not food issues. Like we can sit here and talk about food all day, but we're still reaching for the gallons of ice cream. Like I knew that there was a reason we were all kind of in it together, but it was not about the food. But I just couldn't figure out how to fix it. Like I knew there was something, but I didn't have a way to get there. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
I was trying. I mean, I was putting myself out there, you know, spiritually, and with the diet, I would, you know, when I was dieting, I could do it, but it just never made me feel better.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's like when we have an emotional struggle or there's a self-worth struggle, like all of that stuff sounds great in theory, like you're enough and you deserve it, like all the positive thinking and mantras and all that, like it's great in theory. But if it's coming up against this filter of like, you're not enough, it'll never be enough, like there's something wrong with you, you're broken, like you can't outsmart your self-image. And so that's kind of what was happening for you, was like you were doing all the things. It's not like it was a lack of commitment or lack of desire or lack of effort. It's just it was coming up against the story you'd been telling yourself for decades. Is that what like it felt like for you?
Yes, that's exactly what it was. Yeah, I just needed a way to see through it all, and you popped up.
Surprise! I love that.
And everything that you said resonated as true and was something, it sounded different, but it made sense to me. And I was willing to try something that I hadn't done before.
Yeah. And that's really, you have to get to that point where you're like, you know what, I'm done with the definition of insanity. Like a food solution isn't going to fix this problem because it's not a food problem. Like I think that's one of the things I ask you, like, are you ready to try like a radically different approach, one that will actually heal this for good so you don't have to bring it with you into the future, you know? And that's what you said. You're like, I was ready for that. You've got to be ready for that, you know? So how would you say that your life has transformed as a result of this program and just doing this work together?
I just feel like a new person. I feel like myself again, and I feel like I'm just showing up different. Even when I don't have good days, I feel better than my best day before. So it's changed my life, really. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And I have the tools to like keep going. So that's just the beauty of it. Like I know that I'm not exactly where I want to be, but I have so much hope and know how to keep going.
Yeah. And that's the reality. Like we are all like success driven, like results oriented women. Like we're always raising the bar on ourselves. You know, everyone that's watching this video is like that, you know, and this tends to be that one area where we feel like we're not able to, you know, step it up. But that's the reality. It's like, as we're growing and evolving, like nobody ever gets to that point where they're like, I'm exactly where I want to be. And that's the ongoing journey, right? Is more of that acceptance and accepting who we are and where we are. But it's like when we're in those places, when we have those off days, it becomes a matter of like, who do you want to be in the face of it? Do you want to reach for a pile of Oreos and numb out on Netflix and like snap at your children? Or do you want to show up and use the tools that you have and be proud of who you showed up as in the face of it? Because that hard stuff isn't going to stop coming. I mean, we're literally filming this today. This is April 3rd, 2020, where everybody will look back at this time and be like, this is a time in history that no one will ever forget and that no one has ever experienced. You know, in the midst of all of this, you can show up and say, I get to choose who I want to be.
Yeah, it's miraculous, I think, to be truth told. It is miraculous. I mean, I have had a year from hell and I feel great, and everything that's going on, I feel okay. And like you said, I mean, I can show up who I want to be, and I wouldn't have been able to do that without you.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. You to speak to that if you're open to it. You know, when we first met, like, this was just, I mean, you were married, you had kids, like working full-time job, like, and you were like, I'm ready to make this my number one priority and like heal this. And then in the midst of it, a big, you know, external circumstance that you had no idea was coming just came in the middle of it. And it was like, you reached out to me and it was that, you know, deciding point of like, what do we do now? Like, would you speak to that and what happened in your journey?
Well, I have a son who graduated from high school and was getting ready to go to the military and was living in the basement. And then his girlfriend moved in and it was very dysfunctional. Yeah. And I then realized that I needed also to have a divorce. And my husband and I were married for 20 years, and it's not like everything had been horrible the whole time, but I had really completely lost myself and my value over the last 2-3 years. And when I started the program, like I said, I had done therapy and had tried all kinds of things to try to boost my self-image, and just never felt good about myself. And I did not like the way that I was showing up in the world at all, which just kind of snowballed how I felt about myself and everything around me. And I took ownership of it and really knew that I needed to have a divorce. And so I don't think I would have had the strength to do that before. And it's not that this program sparked me into having a divorce, but I really came to that conclusion because of just everything that had been going on and snowballing in our lives. And when I started to feel better, I stopped accepting what wasn't good for me anymore. And so I don't even know how many months into working with you, that kind of happened.
Yeah, I think it was right at the midway point, to be honest. And, you reached out to me and you told me, and we had this conversation. It was one of those things where, because here's the thing, ladies, like, this was not an expected, planned thing. It was just one of those things where, like, she couldn't stop ignoring her intuition anymore. Her heart was yelling at her. It finally got to the point where it was like yelling and screaming, being like, this is your truth. Like, this is not where you want your future to go. And you hadn't, if I could sum up what you shared with me, it's like you didn't have the courage to own that because you weren't in the sense of self and like the stability and the grounded, calm place that you needed to be to actually deal with it. And so then again, you weren't planning on it. Like, in a way, it was like inconvenient for that to happen in the middle of this program, right? Like, cause you're like, I'm putting myself first and all that.
Yeah.
Right?
It was, it really threw me for a loop too. But I had doubted myself. It's like things had been happening for so long, but I just doubted myself and I questioned myself, and I felt so horrible in general that I kind of just started accepting things that I knew were unacceptable for so long. And it's not like our relationship was abusive or anybody was having an affair. It was just not a good relationship. And through the process of working on these other things, I just realized I wanted better for my life. And so it really just kind of happened, but it had been happening. I think I wasn't brave enough to do it before.
Yeah.
So
And I know just from walking alongside women in this process in the past, whether it's like women that they wanted to get divorced and they were in an unhappy marriage and didn't have the courage, or they were post divorce and they were now just trying to get themselves back. Oftentimes, like what the patterns that I noticed, and that's why I knew how to kind of figure out what it was for you, is like the patterns I noticed with other women is like a lot of times we stay stuck in something because we're afraid that we're not going to do better if we don't have that like inner compass, so to speak, that we call it, to know who we are. Without it, it's like, what the hell am I going to do? Like, and for other women that I walked this through, it was like, who the hell's going to love me again? Or how, if I don't even love myself and all that. And so you and I had this conversation. And I think one of the things I asked you was like, this is happening, right? Like, and you were like, yes, this is happening. And I was like, cool. So like fast forward a month from now, 2 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, like who do you want to be in the face of this? Like, do you want to be on the other side of this as this shrunken version of yourself that feels, all the things that you felt when we first met? Or do you want to look back and be like, wow, I'm so proud of who I became in that process. And you took that and you ran with it and you dug in and you drew a new line in the sand and you were like, I'm just going to go become the best version of myself. Like, this is my time. And you did that. You declared that, can you speak to what that was like for you to just really, in the midst of grief and sorrow and one of the biggest like traumatic life events that humans experience, divorce is one of the number one traumas in an emotional psyche. You took it and used it as an opportunity to grow yourself. Like, what was that like for you, and how did that kind of come about for you?
it was actually a kind of subtle, and it's crazy to say that such a dramatic event could kind of be subtle, but I think that because I had the groundwork of the program and stuff that I had come to know who I was and have confidence in that when all the big emotions and ups and downs came, it's not like I was numb to it, but it was level, and I was able to take it kind of in bits and pieces, and I did feel all my feelings, and I'm sure I had some ugly moments, but it was really smooth and it's miraculous. I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, my husband and I are working from home with all that's going on, and we're all together in the house, and everything's going well, and I have my self in check. It was a dramatic event that didn't completely blow up my life.
Yeah.
And I think I would not have been able to say that ever. I mean, I never saw myself as getting a divorce either, ever. So it's been a learning curve, but I just feel so grounded that it didn't blow me up. And I wasn't using food constantly to deal with all these issues. I felt my feelings, I reached out. And so it was okay. It was okay. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely an awful thing that's happening, but it's not destroying my life. It's not destroying kids. Kids have been like amazing because we both were able to show up as who we wanted to be for them, and it's been incredible to see.
It's just a testament to you, Jess, because we always have a choice. We were talking about this a few weeks ago here in Nashville after the tornado, and it's just like it's an actual tornado, but then it's that metaphysical or that metaphorical tornado that happens. Like, and you went through a metaphorical tornado in your life. Like everything, like your identity shifts. It's like, wait, I'm not married. Who am I if I'm not married? Who am I if I'm not living with this man that I lived with for 20 years? Like, who am I? All of these things. And it just shows that, not that you need a traumatic event to go through to prove it to yourself, but like even in the midst of like the craziest of the crazy, like this metaphorical tornado that was in your life, you stood in your grounded, centered, focused, peaceful place, right? And like, if you can do it then, you get to take that with you everywhere and anywhere. And that's why now it's not a coincidence that we're going through this whole coronavirus thing right now. And you're like, yeah, I'm able to see that there's crazy stuff going on in the world, but I'm here. I'm centered.
Yeah. And the things that I had learned spiritually and through therapy, I mean, those things can resonate with me more now because of where I am. I mean,
totally.
My spiritual growth has multiplied, but I can really take it in now, and that that is nice to see too, because before it was just not penetrating, and
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I tell my clients. It's like, don't throw away the baby with the bathwater. Like there's still so many, like you're not the work that you've done in the past is not far gone. It was just incomplete because it's seeing yourself through a lens where you're broken. There's something wrong with you. You're unlovable. I can't trust myself. I'm destined to be this way forever. Like pick or choose. We all have our own storyline, right? And some of it, it's a combination of those things, but it's like everything else, then it just has a place to go because you're coming from a place of completeness and wholeness and who you are, regardless of what you weigh or what you wear. And don't get me wrong, we want to get all of that. We want to feel in alignment with our health too, but when you just look at it through a microscope of health is just this physical, what you eat and how you move thing, it's just an incomplete subject matter. Not to mention, if you already have a spiritual life, it's like integrate that with who you are as a human. Don't just ignore it or try to positive think your way through it. It doesn't work. So now you have this whole big 3-dimensional scope that you get to pull from whenever you need it. It's like sometimes you need some mental self-care. Sometimes you need some emotional self-care. Sometimes you need some, social and connection self-care. Sometimes it is physical, and now because you have the tools.
Yeah. And you're the reason that I know what I need when I need it. Before, I just thought I always needed chocolate.
And sometimes we need a little bit of chocolate. Absolutely. And now you know when that is. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. For sure.
So
I love that. It's so cool. And so I don't want to be like, congratulations on your divorce, but like, congratulations on who you're being and who you became in the face of this. It's really miraculous.
Yeah. And we have started to tell people, and it's really odd to talk about it because I don't have any of the resentment or bitterness like I said, there are times when when it comes and goes, but it's really hard to tell people, what happened, because nothing really happened.
Any one thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I became who I want to be. And
yeah. And then you get to show up with that grace as you're going through the divorce for your husband, for your children, for the people it's amazing. So what would you say was different about this program than any of the other things you've ever tried? And why do you think it was so successful for you?
What was different was, the way that you put it all together and the steps that you took us through. It just made sense to me. And it was something like, you're really amazing at getting us to have it work for us as an individual. And even though we're working on it as an individual, I could see when talking to other women in the program, we all have so much in common, but the way that I could hear it, you made it so that I could hear it myself and put it together myself. And my greatest therapist that I ever had was like that too. She wouldn't tell me things. She would just let me kind of figure it out on my own. And until it clicked, it didn't make any sense. So like you said, the mantras, you can tell yourself I'm beautiful and I'm worth it and I'm worthy of love. But until something clicks, and you just make it click. So the program made it click the way that you take us through all the steps. It worked. And it was all encompassing of every part of me, the spiritual, the social. Like I said, I can get that all to work now, when before, I would work on the spiritual over here and I would work on the food over here. And the connection was all discombobulated, and you put it all together and made me whole again, Leanne.
Oh, you made you whole. Well, that's really, I love that for you, because that's the thing. Like I tell this to you ladies all the time. I'm like, I can't give you your power. I can't give you your confidence. I can't give you your strength and resilience. You have to create it. You have to discover it. It really is a discovery process. And that's why language is so important, ladies. I mean, I can't, and that's again, like positive mantras and, fake it till you make it, motivational tips. Like everybody thinks they need more motivation. It's like, no, you need more belief. You need more sense of self. You need your own identity. It's got to be this teach you how to fish so that you have it. Because And I'll be the first to admit, like back when I was in the fitness industry, like my business thrived on people needing me and relying on it. And like, Leanne, when's another 6-week challenge? And that was one of my greatest learning experiences, was like, no, I'm not serving anyone if they need me to give it to them. So from day one, it's always like, what do you need? How can we create this for you? And it really is this discovery process. That's why from day one, it's like one big mad science experiment, because I can't tell you, it's like riding a bike. Like I can tell you the mechanics of riding a bike, but I can't teach you balance on a bike. You have to get on it. You have to probably fall off a couple of times. In my case, I had to run into like a telephone pole to learn how to ride a bike. But like you have to figure it out for you so that you own it and it's yours. You get to keep it. You get to have it. And then it grows and evolves as you do, because it's a system of tools, not hard and fast rules, you know? So I love that you were able to get that. I mean, that makes me happy, because now I'm like, not that I didn't know this before, but this is yours.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely me. I mean, when I say I wouldn't have had it without you, you gave me all those steps that you don't know what you don't know kind of thing. And I did not know how to put it all together. And you just took me through my journey in a way that clicked. So I have everything that I need, even, going forward. So
exciting. Now, one of the things I remember on our conversation, like it was just a few weeks ago, we were talking, and it was basically one of those conversations where you're like, oh yeah, and by the way, I have food freedom now. Like I don't even think about it. It's just like who I am. And I'm like, wait. And then you were like, well, what's next? And I was like, wait a minute. What did you just say?
Yeah,
like,
can we? It was so
speak
subtle.
to that?
Yes, it was so subtle. I mean, I was feeling good, and I was concentrating on everything so much that, yeah, I had lost like 8 pounds, and
without trying, for the record, ladies, like I do not teach weight loss. Like we don't, in fact, I'm like, let's put the weight loss mentality on hold. But like what tends to happen when you're not emotionally eating, and when your nervous system is totally at peace, and emotionally you're showing up differently, like my clients just do tend to lose weight, because again, it's the weight of the weight that we're holding on to. Right. So continue.
And I wasn't trying, and I wasn't even, I had kind of stopped weighing myself. I wasn't even really paying any attention. And then I just got curious. And so I weighed myself. I was like, And so it was just kind of not even on the radar anymore. And so when I told you, it was just, kind of like, oh yeah. And by the way, I don't think about food very much. And when I do, it's, it's in a healthy way. And by the way, right. I lost weight and I feel better. So yeah.
So like and here's the thing, women come to me, like one of the reasons, like the program's called Stressless Eating. Like women come to me because they think they just want a food solution. And that's the thing, like you get it. Like I'll give you a system of thinking that once you practice it, it becomes easier the more you practice it, and you get better at it the more you practice it, versus dieting, as we know, it gets harder the more we practice it, and we get worse at it the more we practice it. Like this is a system of thinking that aligns with the brain, so that healthy eating just becomes effortless, as in like you just wake up and it's who you are, right? But you got to get in the reps in the beginning, because it's like learning a new language. It's like if you're speaking Spanish your whole life and then somebody teaches you French, you got to speak in French, right? But then soon you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm automatically thinking in French and dreaming in French and all that, right? But for you, it was so subtle, and it's like you almost skipped over it. Like you were like, oh yeah, by the way, food's like a non-issue. Like it's just who I am now. And I'm like, hello, that's like why we came together. And it's like the other stuff, you realize how much magnitude it has in your life, that the food becomes the simplest part of it once you get all that other stuff just kind of worked out.
Yeah, it was amazing. I think of that often, because I try not to skip over things that I just take for granted now, because it is part of me. Right. Yeah. So
yeah, and we're just so indoctrinated and used to thinking it's this like overnight 0 to 60. We're so used to the 0 to 60 mentality. So when we do it just incrementally, and so it becomes you, it's like we're unaccustomed to that. So we think there's like something wrong with it. We're like, wait, is it really that simple? And it's like, yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was one of my favorite conversations with you, by the way. Yeah. That was so funny. So why do you think this was actually like for you? Why do you think it was worth it to invest in the help that you actually needed this time around rather than go down the diet road, rather than go back to therapy? Like, why was it worth it to you to actually say, okay, I'm done just putting a short-term Band-Aid on this. I'm ready to invest and just take care of this for good?
I needed to commit to myself, and I knew I wanted some kind of accountability a little bit, but I didn't want the accountability of like a diet. And I knew it was different, and I was ready to invest in myself because I wanted my life back. I wanted myself back. I wanted change, and I was ready to commit to something different. And I was ready to, I invest in a lot of other crap that does not work, did not fill me up. And, shopping and movies and food and going out to dinner. And I could go on and on about how much money I spent on things that I thought would make me feel better and didn't. So I was ready to commit in this way for myself, because I knew what I was doing was not working, but I couldn't stop because I didn't know what the alternative was.
I know. Yeah. The world's throwing more diets at you. Like, what can you do? Yeah.
You kind of just popped up, and I wasn't searching or anything. I just was in a place, and I didn't see you. It must have been a video, because the first time I saw you, no, it was just audio I was listening to.
Yeah. You might have gotten the audio version of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And your words just spoke to me. And I think it was like within a day, I was like, oh, I'll sign up. I think that's what it was. I was listening to something, and it just so resonated with what I needed or what I thought I wanted to try.
Yeah.
And I was ready. I was ready to commit. And so, and then you called me, and that was really weird because I didn't expect to be able to talk to anybody, and I thought I was just going to watch a video series or something. So,
right. Yeah. And now you see why, I have to talk to every single person that I work with, because as you know, I have to be 1,000% sure I can help somebody before I say yes, I can help you. Cause there's so many people out there that are like, yeah, I can help everybody. I'm like, no, I know specifically who I'm put on this earth to serve, but also just like you said, you were ready. And I know for me, I wasn't ready for these conversations for a while. I was deeply entrenched in the diet mentality. It was all about weight. It was all about my body composition. You want to talk to me about self-love and all that? I'm like, give me a diet, get some pounds off of me. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the place that we are in our lives, but you have to be ready for this conversation because it's a forever conversation. It's you got to channel the version of you from 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now that's going to say, thank you for taking that time when you were in your 40s or your 50s or whatever, that you just put this to bed and healed it for good instead of waiting and then regretting, and you have to be in that place. And so that's why I talk to every single person that I work with before, because I want you to be in alignment with the reality of and the magnitude of what you're doing and be fully ready to commit. Because as you know, unless you're fully committed, it doesnp work. You can't just dabble in this process. You know what I mean?
Yes, it's true. Yeah. This is kind of a side note, but I have a 16-year-old son, and he's very argumentative and strong-willed. And I was trying to help him with this online homework stuff. And he was just not, he was being so difficult. And my husband, because he's working from home too, came in and saw how we were interacting. And then 10 minutes later, we had a separate conversation. And I said, he just can't communicate. He doesn't do this and he's not doing that. And he actually said, he's not in a place where you can help him. He's not ready to be helped. You can try to help him all day long. He's not ready to receive it.
Yeah.
And I was a little filled with emotion at the time. So I had to kind of step back. And within, 10 minutes, I was able to see it that way. And if he hadn't been there, I probably would have been able to do that now myself too. But it's true. Until you're ready to receive the help and hear the message, you can't. I think that's how I was my whole life, is that I was receiving all the messages, but they were not getting in.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you were ready for them to get in. You were primed and ready. And none of that work had been wasted.
I was willing. Like I was,
Yeah.
because there were some things that you had to take us through. And, I would sit down and be like, oh, I don't know if I can do this work. And I would force myself. And then I would wound up writing for like an hour when I had to force myself to just give myself 5 minutes. And it
Flowed.
It came out.
Yeah.
It all was easy. It was easy.
Oh, amazing. Because you were ready and you were in your flow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even when you weren't, ironically, you know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah.
Because there was, you still have your old habits and way of thinking,
right,
until you don't. And so I had to just trust and go with the process.
Yeah.
And it became so second nature that I didn't even notice I had food freedom.
Who would have thunk? Who knew? Yeah, just have it like accidentally. No, that is so cool. And I love that because that's a big part of this process. Like a lot of modalities and systems of thinking, it's like, let's just like ignore the pain. Let's push through the fear. And it's like, no, let's actually see what that is. And let's work through it. Like, let's not keep ignoring it. Like if you have a legitimate fear, it's not like, oh, fake it till you make it. And just like no pain, no gain. It's like, no, the nervous system will tell you, and then once you pass through it, it's like slow is smooth is fast. Like it happens fast because you're no longer ignoring the symptoms, and it's just so subtle. So I love that. So for you were ready and you were ready to, take that leap. And so what would you say to anyone who is sitting on the fence and they're thinking like, yeah, I know I have like a deep-seated struggle with my relationship with myself and my body and food and shame and self-judgment and self-criticism, but maybe I'll just go on another diet or maybe I'll just try keto again. Like, what would you say to anybody who's sitting on the fence to do this work? What would you say to them?
I would say definitely just try this. I mean, I think I don't know one woman that hasn't dieted, and I have not seen one woman who has been changed by a diet. Everybody that I know, including all family and friends, they're either dieting or they're not dieting, and it's not fixing the issues. And it's just a complete new way of thinking, and it will change your life. It will change your life, and it's better than anything that you would imagine. The food is not the issue, and dieting is temporary and meaningless. And this will give you meaning and fix your food issues. So why not try? Yeah. Oh. And you show us how to do it so that you don't even notice that you're free of food prison, so
yeah, I love that. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, and it's not like I'm perfect. I mean, I definitely overeat sometimes still, but the voices in my head are nothing like when I was dieting. Yeah. I mean, I beat myself up dieting, oh my gosh, for years and years and years.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And that's the thing. We're not playing this game of perfectionism. Like I'm the first person, it's never me coming from some high mountain of like, oh, that was so 2011. I never deal with any of these struggles anymore. It's like, no, these are the tools I use every single day because this is reality. We're human. You look at people that are seemingly in like perfect health and they overeat sometimes, you know what I mean? It's like having that awareness, being able to slow yourself down and influence your being in those moments. And then it's like what happens before, during, and after all those things. And it's not this, it becomes less and less of what you're doing, and the new way of being becomes more and more of who you are. And it's an ongoing process. Like it's a lifelong mastery. That's why I invite people into this lifelong conversation, and then when you do have things where you have a little bit of mindlessness, like how to show up and take yourself back to the place that you want to be in. And more importantly, you're not beating yourself up. You're not moving into that self-loathing and that self-criticism and that judgment and that shame. Shame is the worst, and that's where we were living. That's the emotional home that the women I work with, including myself, were living, and you get to live here,
Yeah. And I mean, it's a food issue, but it's a who you are issue more. Yeah. And it all comes together. So yeah. Whatever you're trying, give it a try.
Love that. Yeah. And that's really what it is. We've just fired and wired using food as a mechanism of comfort and safety and stress busting and boredom killing and all of that. It's like, it's not the food. Food's just the symptom, So, well, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your heart with us. Like, is there anything else you want to share? Anything else that's on your heart or that's coming to mind that you want women to know?
Well, I was just always amazed by the group of women that you do have, that you select, and who wind up coming to you. I just felt a kinship with them, even though I just mostly heard their voices. It just is a real blessing to just be around so many women that we all share so many of the same food issues, but really deep down, we just are so similar in other ways. And that was really wonderful to see. Yeah. Oh. And so I think that is really something that I didn't expect. That was bonus to all this too.
Yeah, I love that. So for those of you who don't know, it's a very one-on-one individualized program where we work intimately together. And then also once a week, there's a group component where you still get one-on-one attention, but you get to hear me coach other women, and they ask questions that you didn't even know you had. And you get to hear me walk them through their own struggles. And oftentimes, as the universe has it, we're going through and walking through some of the same struggles at the same time together, and you get what you need and you didn't even know you needed it, but the kind of woman that are on these calls are like I said to you the first time, I was like, you don't know it, but they're your soul sisters, because it's a very personal struggle and the circumstances are different, but we're all living in our own food and body and shame prison. And we're radically committed to breaking free of that. And when you get around that energy and that commitment level, but also the same sense of, kinship, like, I might not have the same circumstances, but I had my own shame and food and body prison. And I know exactly what that life is like, living in that emotional home and feeling powerless and feeling helpless and living with that self-condemnation and that guilt and that shame every single day. And so there's that level of camaraderie and compassion and understanding and just safety that you don't get from other places. And you get to just, you get supported one-on-one, but you get to also experience others being supported through it too. So it's just that little added element that is, it brings the magic, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I'm very grateful, thankful. So
I'm grateful for you.
Ready to try it for sure.
Amazing. Well, so proud of you. Thanks for sharing your truth. Thanks for coming on here and keeping it really real and telling us like all of the things, because it's not rainbows and butterflies, and we are, sometimes we do need to get to that point where it's like this, it's enough is enough. Like, I'm ready to just radically shift my reality. And you are a testament to that. Just really, taking life by the horns and stepping into a whole new level of self-love and self-acceptance and self-care and health. It's amazing.
Yay. Thank you. It is.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for sharing your truth.
Thank you.
Ladies.
Stay safe, everyone. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a weird time, but
crazy.
Yeah. But grateful to have this abundance. So awesome. Yay. Awesome. Thanks, ladies, for tuning in, and we'll see you very soon. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to today's show. If you like what you heard and you're interested in breaking out of your own food, body, and diet prison, here's what I want you to do next. Head on over to stresslesseating.com. That's stresslesseating.com and sign up to watch the Stressless Eating webinar, where I'll walk you through the exact 5-step game plan my female clients use to conquer emotional eating, self-sabotage, and finally heal themselves from the restrictive all-or-nothing diet mentality for good, but without obsessing or spending years in therapy to address it. I've laid it all out for you there in 5 easy steps. Remember, healing your relationship with food and your body does not happen by itself. You need expert guidance to make it happen, and we've helped clients all over the world take back their power from the food and find true and lasting freedom, while enjoying life and warm chocolate chip cookies along the way. To see if we can help you do the same, head on over to stresslesseating.com. I'm Leanne Ellington, and I'll see you next time.